To the episode 24 of SoLeadSaturday. The guest we have today, Matt, he took his prior education in industrial and mechanical engineering, but now he is a founder and CEO of Business Science, where he teaches data scientists how to apply data science to a business. So let's hear his career journey. How did he find his passion and leading the area he is passionate about? So thank you, Matt, and welcome to be my guest on Solid podcast. Actually, really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. It's been a while since I've seen you, and it sounds like you're doing big things. So I'm just excited to be part of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, and definitely you are a true guest on this podcast because kind of guest I'm looking for the people who are finding that shift or change and interest and growing in their career. So you are an ideal example, I would say. So to begin with, actually, when I looked into your prior education, as I mentioned, that is purely on the engineering side, which is like a hardcore engineering, industrial and mechanical. And you worked in that area as well for a couple of years. And after that, you moved towards a data science. And now it is like you have your own firm, which is like great. So how did that shift happen? When did you realize your interest?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so yeah, you're absolutely right. I started as a mechanical engineer back. I graduated from college. Oh geez, 2006, and I had a degree in mechanical engineering. And back then, there was no data science. It was really, me being kind of like into math and science. Engineering was just a logical choice, and it ended up being a really good choice for me because it opened the doors for a lot of different things. And I'll kind of mention how I grew into data science.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I started working at a large company. It's called Bechtel. The particular part of the company that I worked at, we were dealing with like very highly technical products,
Mm-hmm.
and actually like valves that went into nuclear submarines. So it was quite a wild ride. I was learning a lot, but I was really interested in getting into more of managerial
Mm-hmm.
fields and kind of not just climbing the ladder, but really like being able to have an impact on the company that I was working for. And I ended up taking a position with another company that was also involved in valves.
Mm-hmm.
I got started with them. I actually worked with them for about 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And through that period of time, that's really where I found data science. So I started as a manager, just managing the engineering team at this company. But quickly, I saw some neat areas where I could help out, mainly actually with like the technical sales team. So I got more,
Mm-hmm.
as my career progressed, I moved from just managing a purely technical team to managing part of a sales team. And that's really where I started to have to learn a lot more that was kind of out of my comfort zone, to be honest. I was learning about sales. I was learning about customers. I was working with, a lot of different, like the field sales team, the manufacturing team, the accounting, even the CFO. I was
Mm-hmm.
having to work with him a lot with budgeting. And it ended up being like, as I started to kind of dabble in all these other different fields,
Mm-hmm.
um, the main thing that I found I could benefit these teams
Mm-hmm.
was by being able to analyze data. I was pretty good with my technical background. I could work very well in Excel. I was well versed in VBA, the coding language that kind of comes with Excel. Um, and I started getting my MBA around that same time as I was kind of getting promoted. So the long story short is really that being able to analyze data, and it wasn't called data science back then. This was like 2013 timeframe. Data science was not even a blip on the radar. It was really just using statistics
Mm-hmm.
and data mining, being able to take these large customer databases and being able to understand, okay, how frequently have they purchased in the past? If we're working on a large technical bid, how likely, or like, how are we able to price this particular quote? How are we able to, what area do we have to, watch out for, and what should we be concerned with? So the data was a critical piece,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really kind of my entry into data science, was really just working with customers, working with the sales teams, and not kind of understanding how I could add value to
Mm-hmm.
what they had going on.
Yeah. So the way I understood is like, you touched all the areas in the business actually. When you were working with engineering side as well, you got an opportunity to work with different departments or learn those areas. And it was moreover like you were also open to new learning. So that helped you to, that definitely shows that how you landed up having your own business actually. And when we think about it, like, once you find your interest and you took steps actually towards it to achieve that, and so you learned the programming languages and everything. So when I saw your profile, you have like a bunch of certifications as well. Actually, you explored that area full-fledged, which is like one of the best platforms, Coursera, and you did a bunch of certifications. So why those certifications take place? Like how important those certifications were for you? Because you were like, you did double masters, I guess. You did
Yes.
masters
Yeah.
in mechanical engineering, plus you did MBA along your journey, like in
Yep.
career journey. So it's like always it shows like your growth mindset that I'm always learning something new. So what would you like to say about that actually? What steps, extra steps one person has to take towards achieving that?
Sure. Yeah. So for me, and I can only talk
Mhm.
from my own experience, but when I was learning data science, it was really tough, and it's still obviously very tough. I know a lot of people are really struggling with it.
Mhm.
For me, in my particular circumstance, I was very well accustomed to Excel,
Mhm.
and I was coming from kind of like the spreadsheet tool,
Mhm.
very easy to manipulate information. Um, but the problems that I was having was that the data sets were getting way too large for Excel. It was actually crashing my computer. Um, I had these really kind of massive dashboards that would analyze different parts of the business, and they were critical to me because I needed to I needed to be able to look at those for the Monday morning
Mhm.
call with all of the VPs and the CEO,
Mhm.
and I needed all that stuff to work, and eventually as our data sets grew, it just stopped working, and I would have to like really pare down the data, and then I couldn't leverage the full amount of information that I needed.
Mhm.
So it came to a point where I needed to learn a programming language that was a better to learn these tools for the job,
Mhm.
to be able to automate what I was doing
Mhm.
on a routine basis, and also to start to develop some new things.
Mhm.
So for me, I had always been learning when it came to Excel, and it was just kind of a natural progression to look outside of Excel now to see what tools were available.
Mhm.
um, R and Python were becoming a little bit more popular.
Mhm.
One of my one of our recent hires, who was fresh out of engineering school, actually recommended looking into both of those languages. So I started looking into it, and at that time, or shortly thereafter, Coursera started to come out with some courses. I took a lot of those certifications, and yes, as you pointed out, I have a kind of a laundry list of degrees and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
those sorts of things. The degrees were more important to my company, so I was getting those a lot to help, like the MBA, for example, and that one was actually pretty good. It helped me become more well versed in being able to speak the business the business, like talk about income statements and cash flow, and all the different things that you need to be able to talk about with when you're interfacing with your CFO and the CEO.
Mhm.
Um, but when it came to the data science, their certifications weren't really as important as much as being able to learn how to utilize the tools
Mhm.
that would help get the most results for me as fast as possible.
Mhm.
So I was trying to rapidly go from these issues that I was having to being able to analyze bigger data. And for me, I took the Coursera program.
Mhm.
It was okay. It really didn't help me as much as I thought it would,
Mhm.
because a lot of it was really behind, even for back then, it was behind the times because the software had been developing so fast and so rapidly.
Mhm.
Um, so what actually helped me the most was doing a side project of all things at
Mhm.
that point in time. I was also becoming I was super interested in investing and finance. So I was dabbling in the stock market, not doing any day trading or anything, but trying to understand how to compose really good portfolios, ones that would be resistant to financial crises, because the 2008 financial crisis had happened
Mhm.
several years before that, and I kind of got hammered during
Mhm.
that period in the stock market. Um, so it turns out that the language that I had picked, which was R, the
Mhm.
R programming language, was really well suited for finance. It had a ton of packages and things available. Um, Around that point in time, there was some innovation going on out of the company R Studio,
Mhm.
where they were starting to develop these packages that became known as this thing called the tidyverse.
Yep. Mhm.
And that really helped shape my idea of how to work with data, with these
Mhm.
tidy data principles where every row was an observation. You
Mhm.
had groups, and it was kind of like longer data frames, but you could group within those. And
Mhm.
this whole group, by, split, apply, combine, um, uh, that was becoming more of an integrated part of this thing called the tidyverse for wrangling data and visualizing data. So I got this idea to actually combine the two.
Mhm.
The finance packages which weren't very tidy. They didn't use the data frame structure. They used another structure that was only available for numeric data. So I needed to be able to utilize character data. Some of the
Mhm.
symbols were a character data type. So the data frame structure lent itself really well to it. So I figured out a way to kind of combine the two,
Mhm.
and I put together an R package called TidyQuant,
Mhm.
which was really the project that taught me the most about the language, and really kind of got me over that hump
Mhm.
of struggling with data science, struggling to learn, trying to put
Mhm.
together bits and pieces, trying to figure out how to apply it to my job. When I stopped, kind of focusing on learning the tools,
Mhm.
and more started focusing on, okay, how do I have this concept, this project in my head? How do I complete it? What bits and pieces do I need to put together in order to kind of come up with a cohesive
Mhm.
workflow to complete these financial analyses?
Mhm.
And when I started thinking that way, it was like, holy cow, like this is how, like, I started learning so many different things, and I was having to pull together,
Mhm.
bits and pieces, and really integrate. I was integrating with one common purpose, which was performing a financial analysis.
Mhm.
So that for me was a kind of an epiphany. I was like, hey, this is how to learn data science.
Mhm.
I kind of tucked that away in my mind. So this was the 2016 timeframe. I came out with that R package called TidyQuant.
Mhm.
Um, it wasn't really the purpose in my head wasn't to like create a business and teach people how to do data science at that point. It was
Mhm.
more, hey, just put this package out there so other people can use it in addition to myself.
Mhm.
Give back to the community, because I saw a lot of that going on. It was really exciting at the time, and it still is very exciting. And I put it out there, and people started downloading it, and fast forward, to now, and it's been used. It's used at every financial company out there. It's
Yes.
that uses R.
Mhm.
It's been downloaded hundreds of like 250,000 times or something like that. So
Great. Yeah, that's
yeah,
kind of a great achievement. So, one of the thing actually I noticed, like when you were telling about self-learning, right? When you were learning by yourself about data science, there were a couple of challenges. Always you come across the challenges, but when I see you, it is more or like you have like a researcher mindset where you try to find out the solution. But there are a lot of people actually they always look for the mentorship or how to tackle those situations. What would you like to tell them actually about that? When they self-learn by themselves, even though it is open source, you come across the questions actually when you are learning by yourself.
yeah.
So
So if I can rephrase the question, if are you asking, so if students
yeah,
are
students
running
who
into an
struggle
issue,
actually.
how
Yeah,
how to kind of get through those issues?
struggles, yeah.
And I see this every day. I have about 1,000 over I think over 1,100 students now that I'm working with,
Oh, nice.
and they, as you can imagine, as they're going through the courses,
Mm-hmm.
the they often have problems and they have questions and they're trying to, so, and they're kind of two different types, right? There's one that are more conceptual, that aren't like earth-shatteringly like, hey, if I don't get this answered, I can't proceed with the course. But it's more like conceptual, like just them trying to kind of form that mental linkage between what I'm teaching them
Mm-hmm.
and either the concept or how to use the code to perform the whatever the task is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. And then the other one is, okay, they've got an error, and how are they able to, like,
Mm-hmm.
utilize the information that's in front of them to be able to solve that error.
Mm-hmm.
So from my personal experience, it's always been utilizing resources that I have available to me, um, understanding what the error code is, understanding how to debug your code with
Mm-hmm.
either print statements or using Stack Overflow, and doing a lot of Google searching, to be quite honest. And that's what I preach in my courses, is that, hey, uh, when you run into these situations, everybody runs into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a good coder and a good developer is going to try and utilize these tools. Number one, the error code, whatever that error message is, Google that, anything around that, start to do your research. Utilize Stack Overflow. Those are typically the best and quickest ways to get your solution, as fast as possible. When they get into that situation where they've done that already and they can't get through it, that's when they come to me, and that's when I'm in the Slack channel working with them. And I remember, I've been on vacation before, and I've seen I've been getting these Slack channel, because that's how I interface with my students, is they all get access to a Slack channel and they can message me. But I remember, one holiday I was on, I think we had a message back and forth of like 70, responses, like the just trying to help the student kind of get through, because it was a serious issue that was preventing that particular student from moving forward in the course.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a serious issue with the course per se, but it was preventing them from conceptually and being able to move forward. He just felt like he needed to, like, constantly do more research.
Mm-hmm.
And what my goal there with him was to be able to say, hey, this is, what you need to know at this moment in time. So instead of like trying to learn everything about this particular question that he had,
Mm-hmm.
let's hone it in a little bit and focus it on just the key points that you need to know. And I call this the 80-20, but you really don't need to know. And this is where most students struggle, is they think they need to know everything. And I don't know everything. I'll be the first person to admit I do not know everything.
And this area is itself evolving actually. Every 6 months you will find something new. So You can't say that you know everything.
Right, right. The people that claim to know everything, you know, they're dangerous because they probably don't know nearly as much as they think they do.
Mhm,
Um, so you know, my goal with that particular student at that moment in time was just to help them understand, you know, hey, you just need to know this 20%. And that's going to help you accomplish about 80% of what you need to do. So if you can get this key concept down,
mhm,
then you can continue to move forward, because a lot of times these students they just kind of get in their own way in their head, and it's because there's just so much they can easily get bogged down. And I was in the same
mhm.
boat back when I was learning, because I felt like I had to, you know, when I first was like in the Coursera program, I'd learn a topic and then I would like research it for a week, and
Oh,
that's just not practical, right? So at some point you have to say, okay, I need
mhm.
to find a project that I'm gonna like
Yeah.
solve,
Mhm.
whether it's my work project or my hobby, and then try and just figure out the bits and pieces I need to know that are around that in
Yes.
order to accomplish it. So
So many valid points actually you mentioned, like use of a Stack Overflow plus getting engaged into the projects along with learnings. So thank you so much for sharing. Moving towards, like, I can see the trainer kind of like you are very good at mentoring, I feel, because the way you're talking. So what is your teaching style?
um, I'd say patience. I'm pretty patient. There's not a whole lot that flusters me, you know. And don't get me wrong, there's moments in time where, you know, it's just like if it's a ridiculous question that's totally off the wall and has no, you know, no bearing on anything,
Mm-hmm.
I'll wait. I'll shoot them straight and I'll say, hey, you know, this is a really good question, but I don't think your time is best spent, you know, trying to answer it. Really kind of trying to steer them in the right direction so that they're not always getting in their way,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so easy. It's so easy to do when you're learning data science, because you're trying to learn algorithms, you're trying to learn coding, you're trying to apply it, you're trying to learn theory, and it's just like if you try and do everything, then you're really gonna end up hurting yourself from a productivity standpoint. So my goal is, all right, let's keep them productive. Let's keep them applying stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get them a lot of reps, because I really feel like when you type out code, you learn so much. And when you see other people code, which is my style in the courses, you know, every video is really just me kind of typing line by line and explaining what I'm doing, not
Mm-hmm.
only what the code means, but my thought process as
Yes.
I'm writing it, as
Mm-hmm.
I'm typing it. And I think that's the value of the courses, and my teaching style. I think really the mentorship
Mm-hmm.
is kind of to help make sure they don't stray too far from the path, and then but also keep them, you know, if they run into a major error, keep them from having it be like a major block that causes them to stop taking the course, because that's the last thing that I want every student to complete that course. As long as they have the motivation, I don't want, you know, an error to be what stops them, and I'll never let that
Yeah, it seems
happen.
like you are truly inspiring teacher actually. So
Well, thank you.
students are going to like you. So moving towards our next question, it's more about your firm actually in the business science. So would you like to share more about what it does and how it works?
Yeah. So business science is my company. I started it probably, or actually around, it was probably a year or so after I had released TidyQuant.
Mm-hmm.
I actually started it because as a consulting company to begin with, because I was starting to get consulting engagements, and it was just really a way I had to create a business to as a LLC to prevent any sort of legally any sort of issues. You know, if somebody if I wrote code that ended up breaking, which, you know, could possibly happen. If I were to get sued, you know, I had a liability, an LLC to protect me. So that was really the start, because I was starting to get some of these consulting engagements. Um, the the idea for business science came after I had several consulting engagements, and I was really seeing what was going on out there in the field. And I saw a lot of other people in the same situation that I was, albeit I was kind of, several years ahead of them. But really these companies that were looking for predictive analytics, they had no real concept. Like the executives really didn't have a strong concept of what that meant. And then the people that were doing the work, which are the analysts, they were just not experienced enough with some of these tools. And also they really didn't know how to kind of bridge that gap between the new tools, which is the data science piece, and then the business, which is, what are the objectives, what's the KPIs, what are the key pieces we need to focus in on from that data that you have. So the first course I launched about 2.5 years ago. It was actually an advanced course. I didn't start out with a beginner course. I started out with an advanced because that's really from my experience in working with these companies. These students needed to see a full large scale project being completed. So that was the 201 course. I launched that after I had been consulting for about a year, and it was really my consulting framework combined with the tools that I was using and I still use. H2O, which is for automated machine learning. It's just a massive productivity booster. It does all sorts of machine learning automatically, things that would take me, like, honestly, a lot longer. It does in seconds. So I was teaching, I taught that. I taught some of the explainable machine learning, which was coming about at that time. LIME, LIME, it stands for local interpretable machine learning model explanation. And that was really useful at the time for explaining these kind of black box models, the models like, your random forest and your XGBoost, which people just, the business needs to see, okay, hey, yeah, this person's, likely to leave the company attrition wise, or this customer's, likely to be, flagged, and they might be at risk of losing that account. But they need to understand why. And that's what Lime helped us do. So I started teaching that in this kind of, full project. This is a churn project, and we're going to start from the beginning with what does the data mean? How does that relate to the business? What are the KPIs? What are the, can we assign some dollar values to the issue? And then kind of moving through, okay, how do we process this data? How do we show people what's going on? How do we prepare it for machine learning, which are two totally different ways of preparing data? How do we perform the automated machine learning? How do we do the Lime? And then we're not done, because what we have to do is we have to make recommendations, right? Because that's what the
goal, actually.
Yeah. So most data scientists, they stop when they have a good model, but that's just the beginning. Yeah. You need to be able to recommend, and you need to be able to showcase. So I put that, I made my first course. It took about 8 months to put that together. And it really, it ended up being it's our top seller.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we have about 800 students just in that one.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I just started actually building the program around that. So the 201, some of the students, about half of them, probably weren't ready for it. so they were. I could tell by some of the questions, and also I had a questionnaire that they would fill out after the second or third week. And I could tell from the responses in there that some of them were saying, hey, there's like not enough explanation. So that's a dead giveaway. Okay, well, the explanation isn't the issue. It's the fact that you probably don't have or I need to give you the fundamentals first. So I ended up building a 101 course that ended up being the beginning, what they should have, and the prerequisite before they take the 201. So when I did that like all of the comments went away. Like so right now that 201 course is rated like a 9 out of 10. I mean, which is really high for a data science course. The 101 course teaches all of the fundamentals. And actually I have a free part of that course that it's called Jumpstart with R.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually opened up to the public as a freebie, the first week of that 101 course. And that 101 course is honestly the best course if you want to like
Mm-hmm.
really understand how to work with data, how to visualize it, all of the wrangling, the being able to manipulate it, how to program with data, how to iterate, do loops, how to do machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
That so it taught all of the fundamentals. So now those students were really well versed and able to go into that 201 and be confident.
Right, actually. So one-on-one is moreover like how long is that course actually?
It's a 7-week course. So yeah, and you can go through it faster. I mean, I've had some students complete it in like 3 weeks. I mean, they just, it's not very common, but it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've had other students take, several months to complete it, but on average, I'd say it takes about 7 to 8 weeks to complete.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
great, actually. So I hope that audience is listening and they would like to enroll for that course. Moving towards our next question is about, when I looked into it, your business science website also, it is a lot more like a business science with R actually.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you like to differentiate between the Python and R when it comes to data science, and why R? Like,
Sure. Yeah. So a lot of people look at, hey, I got to pick one, Python or R. Um, and that is kind of true, especially when you're learning,
mm-hmm,
but we're all going to end up at the same spot down the road anyways. We're going to have to know probably a little bit of both
both.
to be really effective, because there's some strengths with each of the language.
Mm-hmm,
I chose R, and this is for kind of reasons that I saw.
mm-hmm.
Um, my background was coming from Excel,
Yes.
and I actually started out with Python, and Python was really difficult for me because it was more, I felt like I needed to learn object-oriented programming. I was having a tough time with all the loops that I had to write in order
Yeah,
to be
it is an
able to.
interpreted language. So you type everything actually, whatever you are thinking.
Yeah. And I mean, and it was a lot of typing too. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, it was a lot
Yeah.
of code. Um, and then
Mm-hmm.
I had started doing that for about a month, and then I switched over to R just to give that a test drive. And the thing I liked about R was that although it was very raw at the time, because it just, there's been so much more advancement since I started it, but it was really focused around statistics and functional programming, which and what that means, a functional program, it's kind of like Excel, where
Yes.
you have these functions like sum or mean, to take the average of something, or median. And you use these functions to kind of manipulate your data, either to aggregate it or to do something to it, like to find if that has missing values, or, so for me, it being focused helped me kind of really focus on just the data analysis piece and not the
Mm-hmm.
object oriented piece, and having some of these other kind of pre-built parts of the language to be able to apply, like with the per library, the map functions. So that was really instrumental in being able to do a lot of iterative analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually one of the main things that TidyQuant's built off of, is because what it does is it loops through everything, but there's no for loops in it. It's just the map the map function from per. But like, it's, for me, it was a lot easier to grasp. And at that point in time too, they were coming out with this thing called Shiny, which is for
Oh,
web
fine.
applications. Yeah. So that to me was like, oh, once I saw Shiny apps, I was like, this is the future. I mean, like, I need to get behind this.
Yeah.
So, and at that point in time, Python didn't have that. And still, like, Shiny's pretty advanced compared to what's available on the data science end, for making apps. So I ended up I ended up going with R. It was a good choice for me. I don't think I would be at this point being able to do as much as I can
Mm-hmm.
if I had picked Python back then.
Yeah.
But to circle back, so now I'm actually, so I do these things called learning labs. I know we were talking before, and you said, yeah, I'd attended one of them. So the one that's going on this week is the kickstart of the Python plus R series.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually integrate both languages. So I'm going to be doing R for a lot of the data manipulation
Mm-hmm.
and pre-processing of the data.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I get it into a format where it's a matrix, and you can use scikit-learn with it. So I'm going to use scikit-learn with all of the data, and we're going to solve a pretty cool business problem, one where that human resources is interested in, where they have employees.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them have been terminated either because the employee left the company or because they had to, and or the company fired them. And we'll be able to utilize scikit-learn to analyze the clusters. And it's really cool to be able to see the two languages work together. So
Yeah, that's great actually, and that would be a great exposure for the students to learn, get the exposure to both the languages.
right, yeah, and that's cool too, because a lot of people, they perpetuate, whatever they've heard other people say.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you actually see the two languages and how well they work together now, and then you can start to leverage some of the strengths, like Python with the scikit-learn package. It's just really well done for machine learning. And then R on the data wrangling end with the tidyverse and dplyr and the visualization, especially with ggplot2.
Yeah.
You get to see kind of the two,
Yes.
the best of both, that really
Yeah.
made these languages what they are.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, actually, definitely R is a good for statistical analysis, and lots of tools which are automating the machine learning or the data analytics part. They are using R packages. Actually, they are having that R code behind it, even though those are drag and drop tools behind the that tool. Actually, there is everything written in R or something like that. So yeah, so that is definitely I can also relate to. Moving towards one more interesting thing, actually, I'm also very interested into this time series forecasting course.
Yes.
So you said that you completed rewriting the timed R package for time series analysis, and I would like to learn more about it, as well as I think audience will be interested in that.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So Time TK is another R package that I have, and I just did a major update to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure. Am I able to share my screen, and will the students be able to see it, or is it just a podcast? Would it be?
No, they would be able to see it. You are
Okay.
actually, I can change it to the full mode actually.
Okay. Yeah. If I can share my screen, I'll just show you guys what I'm working on. So let's do this. Let me share my screen. Can you see?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just gonna save what I've got going on here. This is another R package that I'm getting ready to do for ARIMA modeling.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna switch over to Time TK.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see this, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, good.
Recording it, so that's great.
Okay, so I'll just kind of show you a couple examples of what I'm working on. So the package is called Time TK. So if I just do Time TK and library that, and I'm gonna library the tidyverse. So this gets you kind of like all the packages you need to be able to do some time series analysis. One of the data sets is a pretty common one. It's called Taylor's 30-minute data set. And what this is it's energy demand data here in the value column.
Oh, okay.
And then it's at a 30-minute intervals and you can see it's about 4,000 observations. So just to give you kind of like an overview of some of the cool things you can do. So this is a plotting function. I'm just going to plot it. I'm going to use this function called plot time series.
Okay.
And what I'm going to do is, so I'm using this thing called the pipe, and that's going to fill in this .data argument. And then I'm going to provide it a date variable and a value. So the date variable will be the date column, and then the value will be the value column. So I'm just going to do date and value. And let's just see what we get. So it creates an interactive plot here, and it's only one line of code here. It's got a little trend line to it.
Yep.
And you can imagine, normally it's a lot, like this consolidates a lot,
Yeah.
but it's also pretty flexible. So if I just copy this and paste it down here, it's got some other arguments. So I can, it's got this argument called .color underscore var. And if I do, if I add another package up here called Lubridate, and this is the Lubridate is a very popular package for time series, like date function. So it has this function called week. And if you call that on the date column, and it'll change the color.
That's great.
By a week. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can start to see some trends, hey, every week it looks like it starts at a pretty low point, kind of shoots up, and then, goes back down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
So
great, actually. R is really good at visualization, and as you mentioned, that it has pretty less number of lines of codes when you compare to Python, because Python you type everything actually.
yeah, it's, so the package, has a ton to offer. I think what's cool here too, like you said, with the visualizations, I kind of focused on that a lot. That's one of the main pieces here. There's another function that we can do is we can do the seasonality diagnostics. And let me take out this piece here. So you can see that the kind of just works the same way. It's normally always use the date and the value. And you get
Wow.
that looks like this.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. You can see, okay, you've got an hourly, it starts low at the early hours of the day, and you can see that energy demand tends to spike up right around 7 a.m. And then it kind of goes down towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then you can see Sundays. So there's another frequency in here. Sundays and Saturdays tend to be lower than the weekdays. And so on. So, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. And that's just with the visualization end. So it's really, this package is about data visualization, time series data wrangling, and time series data preprocessing. So it has kind of covers all those three sections. There's no modeling in it. That's what I'm working on right now, is a package for modeling. But what this is all going to be done is, and the reason why I'm doing all this is so I can teach it, because I was having a very difficult time putting together the time series course that I'm developing. I'm going to be teaching a lot of cutting edge methodologies, the ones that are winning a lot of Kaggle competitions, like ensembling methods, deep learning using recurrent neural networks. And then the other one is being able to utilize like algorithms like XGBoost on ARIMA errors, on deep learning errors, and other model errors. So it's going to be a pretty high-end course. It's going to be very applied. So you're going to actually apply it to a lot of different time series problems. And it's going to be with real data. So data that is actually my own business science data from my company. Things like our email subscribers, you're going to be forecasting email subscribers. You're going to be forecasting Google Analytics data. You're going to be forecasting sales data. So it's all of the common stuff that you're going to have to do, and it's going to be raw, like missing data. You're going to have to aggregate it. It's not going to be cookie cutter, but it's going to be a real.
Yeah, that's great. Actually, I feel like people will be interested into it and to look into. And the way you are saying, I feel those are like kind of a specific topics that you are touching while giving the webinars. So definitely people will be more interested to learn.
Yeah. So that was just a quick tutorial of there's so much more to that our package, like literally there is so much more to it.
Yeah. So thank you so much for sharing.
Those are two visualization functions that I'm pretty excited about.
Yep. Thank you so much for sharing. And I hope audience is also going to like it actually, and hopefully they will come to you. So moving towards like the way you are leading this data science area actually truly shows that you are engaged into a lot of things, and you do lots of analysis as well prior to setting up what would be next for your business. So what is your leadership style, if you have to tell to the people?
So I do have two contractors that I work with. My leadership style, it's one where I give them kind of a lot of flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
but I also feel like I need to be available. So my thought process is and how I think is a good way to lead is to give people projects to work on. So my two contractors, they both have their own projects that they're working on, and they're very important to the business.
Mm-hmm.
One is building the back end data analytics. So they're building David. He's building the whole what we call the customer data platform, which integrates our MailChimp data, which is our email data. It integrates our Google Analytics. It integrates all of our transaction data and all of our webinar data and everything. Like any data sources that we have, it combines everything into one area. So it's a lot of data engineering. So he's handling all of that. And then Kristen, who is she's putting together all of the like email nurturing sequences and those sorts of things. So really they kind of rely on each other, and I've kind of set it up that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I do is I give them the assignments for the week, and then what I've tried to do is to be as available as possible. So whenever they have a question,
Mm-hmm.
try to answer that as quickly as possible, because the last thing I want to do is have somebody sitting idle, not being able to work on something. So I always try and keep them moving, keep them going forward. If they need something reviewed, like if Kristen needs an email reviewed, I try and jump on that as quickly as possible.
That's great. That's a good leadership style, actually, because if leader is available to help people out, then definitely the people would be more encouraged
Yeah.
to work on that specific task. So thank you so much. That was quite unique, actually. Nobody shared until now. So that is good to know. One more addition to the leadership styles. And any specific leader that you follow or always get inspired by?
I have a few, like Warren Buffett. That's he's a big one for me, just from the finance side. But his investment philosophy is like I'm totally in sync with, which is buy and hold. And then it's also he feels, and it's actually an educational. His whole investment philosophy is based around education.
Oh,
Which is very surprising. Most financial people don't really, at least publicly, focus on education as much. But
yeah. Uh-huh.
he feels that the best investment is one in yourself,
Yep.
whether it's to grow or to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
He feels that is the best investment you can make, and I feel the same exact way. And that's what I perpetuate at Business Science is if you invest in this
Mm-hmm.
program, you will succeed. I'm going to do everything in my power to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And, I will commit to you if you will commit to the program. And as long as you stay motivated, I'm going to be there to help you. So.
Yep, that's great. And thank you so much for sharing. Moving towards a couple of things you already mentioned, actually, how person can find his interest and take steps towards it. But just to summarize at the end, actually, would you like to just summarize it?
How to find your
How to
interests?
find the interest and take the leadership in that particular interest.
Okay. So I think your interests, normally you already have something that you're interested in, whether it's music, whether it's social media, whether it's, if you're into, I don't know, playing the guitar, whatever it is.
Yep, yep.
Uh, how the key question in my mind, if you want to become a data scientist, is how do you combine that interest of yours with projects that are useful either to a business or useful to some sort of consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And from my perspective, like you can totally do it. The best thing in my mind is to create a blog,
Mm-hmm.
because just the act of writing things down and sharing it with the world helps you learn so fast.
Yeah.
And normally, if you have to think to put together a blog, you're going to do a lot more homework. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to do more research, and
Mm-hmm.
you're really going to think about not only yourself but your audience, whoever that reader in your mind is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps you become. And when you teach something, you learn that subject so much better. So I've seen people do it. Like one of my buddies, he created the Spotify art package,
Oh, okay.
and so his big thing was music. Like he loves analyzing music text, wanting to know what the sentiment of a song is.
Mm-hmm.
He likes analyzing how different, like one uh, we'll say one musician, all of the different songs that they write, how do they stack up, like from a sentiment standpoint? So he really found a way to like take his passion. He created an R package out of it. He's created Shiny apps that really do an awesome job at explaining how different, how angry,
Mm-hmm.
different lyrics are, or how sad they are, or how upbeat they are. So he's taken his passion in music and figured out a way to turn it into,
That's great, actually. That is a good advice to have, that, if you find the interest, and sometimes people juggle it between financial, like getting the financial ability, like stability, and then um, how to manage both the things, like, interest, whether the career choices are also, most of the times it happens that you're not interested, but you're doing it just because you want the financial stability. But this is a very great advice to have, that, once you find the interest, actually, whatever interest you have, you can just have the fusion of your interest plus your career choice,
yeah.
and have that interest going. That is a
Yeah,
good thing, actually.
I really think you can combine the two. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the best way.
And that is
That's
a
how
great
I learned. I mean, I
opportunity
liked
for.
finance.
Yep, yep. Data science has that opportunity, that it comes along with all kinds of data. So definitely you have that opportunity to merge those two things. And just to end up this podcast, is any tips or advice to any aspiring students who are trying to get into the data science, or the professionals right now who are, like, in the different area, but they want to get into data science? They are looking for change in the career or grow
Yeah,
in that particular area.
sure. So if you're just coming out of school and you want to get into your first data science job, I think the advice that I would give is really start to understand what a business wants and needs. So you really need to, the data science piece is almost not as beneficial at that point as understanding the business and how to create value for a business. So you need to understand that. That's the thing that you need to understand the most. Conversely, if you're already in a company and you want to transition into data science, it's the opposite. So you need to really start to understand the algorithms, the science, the math, but most importantly, how to apply it to solve specific problems that your company faces. So generally speaking, those people with the company, they already have the domain experience, right? So they already understand, hey, these are the challenges that they're facing. I got to figure out, do I use a hammer or a screwdriver, or what data science tool do I use? And that's what those people need to use. At business science, we cater to both. I will say that students that are looking to get more business knowledge, you
Mhm,
will pick up a ton of business knowledge through these data science courses. And then on the flip side, those that are already in a career,
mhm,
we've successfully helped a ton of students transition from what they're doing now to these data science career paths. And it's helped them get promotions
mhm.
much faster. In fact, I just had a student last week email me saying he got 40% increase in pay over a year's period. And before that, before taking the courses, he was only getting like a 3.5% raise every year. It's pretty amazing.
Mhm,
I've had other students get their first data science position.
mhm,
I had one student get one at Deloitte where he he won them over in the interview by bringing up the business science problem framework, my old consulting framework, and showcasing how he can say, all right, in this data science problem that you're facing, these are the key things we need to focus on. Is it the quality metrics? Is that most important? Is it the financial metrics? Is it revenue? Or is it, this or that? And he was able to kind of point them to show how he could use his tools to help them. And they were really excited about that. So he ended up getting the job.
Thank you so much, actually. And you're doing great, actually. Congratulations on all your achievements, and good luck with your future endeavors as well. So thank you so much for being my guest, and hope audience, you will also enjoy this episode. We have covered lots of topics, actually, alongside R Python, as well as what is happening in the data science and what would be the next specific topics as well in Matt Dancho's business science courses. So please do check out. I will provide all the links to you guys. And until we meet, happy leading. Let's lead together.